Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. So, as you said, my name is Jaime, and today we'll be talking about functional testing, why it's important, and what led us to building a platform for our users. Okay, we're going to do this. So like I said, Jaime, little thing about me. So I am a lucky husband, proud father of two. I was born in El Salvador and lived most of my life in Texas. I'm a software engineer at JPMorgan. I work for the continuous delivery team under JET, which stands for JPMorgan Enterprise Toolchain. And I am a recent member of the TOC for the project Spinnaker. So why is functional testing so important at JPMorgan? So I don't know how it works at other banks. They may have similar things, but we have things called control objectives and control procedures. So a control objective, all it is just a generic goal. So here we're talking about improving our security posture. And then the procedure is a process known as deployment authorization. So what engineers are required to do is essentially deploy their new code to a test environment, run a suite of tests against it, upload the test results to an evidence store, and then someone will review those results. And from there, you get the go, no go to production, basically. So with that context in mind, we were going to kind of cover how it used to work before Spinnaker came into the picture, and then some of the problems that came after. So in the beginning, Jenkins did everything you needed to. It was a single runtime context. It had a credential store. Adding tests was as simple as adding a Groovy closure, and you were done. But for scalability reasons, we wanted separate tooling handling our deployment specifically, and this is where kind of Spinnaker came into the picture. One thing about Spinnaker is that it's not Jenkins, and that single runtime context I was talking about doesn't really exist. Spinnaker in isolation is a distributed system, so you have pipelines and stages, but those are really just abstractions, and behind the scenes, you have different microservices doing different things. So you have Cloud Driver doing your deployments, you have Orca keeping track of the pipeline context, you have Fiat, which doesn't work. And so the question of where do your tests runs, how do you get access to your tests, how do you pass credentials, it was a bit problematic. So when we first tackled this, is a little funny, is we kind of pulled an Uno reverse card, where we basically said, okay, when we get called to deploy something and we want to run a functional test, we're actually going to call Jenkins back. And Jenkins is going to run the test, and then you let us know when you're done. We'll deploy from there. That didn't work because there wasn't a proper way of authenticating without having a super FID, essentially, which led us to attempt number 2, which I don't really classify as an attempt. When we were approaching general availability, we needed to have parity with our legacy system, and so we had to have post-deployment somehow. So we documented how you would do it in your own environment. You're responsible for getting all that set up, and then say, hey, we got post-deployment. And this led to a series of user tickets of, how do we get post-deploy running? So following our docs, it was complicated. Not only that, there were some other issues which we'll discuss. So you had to manually set secrets outside of the pipeline. So Spinnaker didn't have a credential store. It does have integration with HashiCorp, but we're trying to move away from passwords. So one of the problems with being the new kid on the block is a lot of stuff that the older tools got to do, you don't get to do. And so this was a really big problem. Not only was it tedious and it's a manual step that you do outside of your automatic deployment, you'd be on the hook for rotating those passwords, migrating proxy configuration. We're incurring tech debt on our users. Not only that, uploading manual secrets for our documentation, we instructed them to use AWS Secrets Manager. This was a break in policy, so some application teams would actually get penalized for this, and so they couldn't actually adopt our tool because of it. And then the last thing is that it only worked with our internal source control manager. The one we were moving to did not support the way that we were authenticating to fetch the tests to begin with. So how did we kind of go about to removing all of this manual process, making it more secure? Basically, we just abstracted all of this nonsense in a stage, and then we, like the title alluded to, a lot of these problems go away when you get to run it in your own infrastructure. There's a lot of constraints that were put on us that when trying to do this with users' environments didn't work, that when you shift it to our environment, just works. So how did that hold up? So we can't do everything Jenkins can. You can code your dreams to life. So we limited the scope to just running functional tests, and we were going to focus on majority of the testing framework. Another thing that we had that wasn't technically parodied with the legacy system is integrating with our internal test solution called TestSite. So this would just give you insights into your test results, and it would also automatically upload your test results to our evidence store for compliance, which is good. Where do the tests run? As I kind of already alluded to, these run on our own environment on ECS. So we run all of our microservices plus Spinnaker on EKS, and we've had issues sort of maintaining our own Kubernetes cluster on AWS. It can get complicated. We didn't want to deal with scaling or potentially impacting our existing services, so we said we're just going to have this little zone on ECS. We'll have a task that we control. We own the task definition, the image that's on it, the script that's ran. All of that is under our control. But they get to then leverage our credentials, which is good. So for getting the tests and uploading the tests, these are just sort of the perks that you get with deploying with us. You get the keys to the castle, so you don't have to worry about it. If you had to test an application that was protected by our internal identity provider, then we used on-behalf authentication. This was a bit trickier to do, but basically how it would work is the stage would have a map that you could input an environment variable and then a resource. And then on the back end, we would swap that resource with an actual token that then they could pull in their tests and use to authenticate against their application. So this is just sort of a list of what's supported. Again, you're not going to see everything, but these were the tests that were mostly used when collaborating with TestSite. Karate, Cucumber, Cypress, PyTest, Playwright, and then some of the build tools that are used to actually run those frameworks. We had really good reception for other people who struggled to set this up on their own. We've had people who weren't even using our tool to deploy to wherever they were deploying to, asking if they could use this stage. Our users on-prem, which we aren't really developing features for, are asking for support for this as well. And like I said, they went from provisioning multiple resources. So if you're on EKS, you needed an EKS cluster, a run job definition. You needed your own image to actually run your tests, so you needed to have the right binaries for that. You had to manually seed secrets to fetch your tests, upload the tests. You had to rotate the secrets. And now all you have to do is add a stage to your pipeline. Not every solution, every solution comes with its own trade-offs. One of these, because we're using ECS, is we have to basically incur a deployment time penalty if we want to dynamically choose different images. So our solution for that right now is we just have this kitchen sink. Every binary you can think of is pretty much on that, with the ability to sort of toggle which major versions of these binaries that you need for your tests. There is an existing solution that kind of handles builder nodes that we would have liked to leverage, but again, because ECS, you have to define the task first and then execute, it would just make it take a lot longer just to run tests, and we didn't think that was good. You may be asking, why not EKS Fargate? Because that would kind of solve the scalability issue and the dynamic image thing all at the same time. Basically, we can't have nice things. I asked, basically no support for daemon set, and the way they were able to get ECS tasks working is they have sidecars that allow for additional monitoring. I don't know, so something to know about our firm is ECS deployments is a bit strange. We actually use Terraform for it because we have a suite of Sentinel policies that make sure everything is kosher. I don't know if they just couldn't get it work for Kubernetes, but it is what it is. And so where do we go from here? So as I mentioned earlier with the control procedures and the control objectives, critical points of failure, so CPOF apps, these applications have additional scrutiny. So one of the things for deployment authorization is they actually need performance testing. So that's the thing we're looking at next. That would be a huge win. More automation around image maintenance, more support for new frameworks, and just if there's any bespoke thing that people used to run in Jenkins for their unique application, we're having an open dialogue with them and seeing how we can support them whether by opening up our script on the ECS task or straight up just adding a different stage for something that they need. That's pretty much it. Any questions? Go ahead.
When it comes to building that insanely large kitchen sink image that you're talking about, do you actually do that daily? Like, how long does that take?
We don't do it daily. We have basically like 2 different kitchen sink images. We have latest and we have stable. And so basically we have, I don't really know, so this kind of released last month. So I can't give you a cadence as to how often we do it, but it would kind of just depends on user needs, I'd probably say, yeah.